Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for a full spoiler review of Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. Uh, I came back, I watched it today, went to the afternoon showing, came back, cleaned myself up, ate a little something just to recharge my batteries a bit. So now I want to give like a full breakdown, at least for an hour's time, discussing my thoughts on what I thought of the film. Been looking forward to this film for quite a while, given how often it was pushed back, given how COVID was working out. Speaking of which, when I got to the theater, there was crazy amount of people in the theater. Then, even though in the last film, like Suicide Squad 2, there was a good handful of people, but it's not as much as it was in this time around. As I was walking in line going to the concession stand, I had like a nagging thing in my head. It's like, so many people here, and it's like, like a little edgy because it's like, I got to stay 6 feet apart, blah blah blah. I had my mask on. A lot of people had their mask on and stuff like that. But then again, I had to remind myself, this is a good thing. Getting, we're getting like, the theater is back, and we're trying to get things, moving again, getting past this. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Try to remind myself like, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. But I'm not used to going to any kind of afternoon, or at least, well, not like, usually it's early afternoon at the most. Because other movies, that I went to, I usually go either like the tail end of the morning, like around like 11, getting towards noon, at the very latest 1 p.m. So far as like catching like an early showing. Other times, like pre-pandemic, usually a little bit earlier than that, on Saturday. Not too early, but just like around like 10ish into like 11 or noon, because it's like a lot of people with their kids and families and a bunch of ignorant teenagers. There's a lot. Just a side note, getting towards like we'll get into the movie in a minute. I just want to just voice my don't want to bring the mood down or anything like that, but it was like a moment around the third act period. There was it got to be at least a couple of teenagers. I don't know who it was. It's like obviously way up in the front towards like the left side, and so some obviously some stupid dumb teenagers. Don't know who it was, but one of which blurted out just like the N word, like they have like some kind of Asperger's or something like that. And like I'm sitting next to like a black woman, complete stranger, but even she, like, obviously everybody would have taken notice. In the scene was just quite long enough for like obviously people to hear, and they trying to be like, oh, like it's funny or something like that, and it's like it better be like some black kids. Not that it's okay, but it's like only we are kind of have the luxury of saying that word. But like I said, it's not that it's okay, but that's just like, and I had sneaky suspicions of who it was, because it was maybe like some Hispanic little teenage boys that came like like in there, like I guess just with those two. I don't know. It was just like, I have no proof or anything like that. It was just going to stupid moments that just gonna have to like set to the side. It's not like you can easily point them out. There's no proof. It was just like a stupid moment, but it didn't ruin my day or anything like that. It was just like like, why would you do that? Anyway, all that aside, this is my theater experience that, by and large was still good, aside from that one, minute detail. Anyway, I did do a review of Venom, the first Venom movie made back in 2018, that I did the review of yesterday. That's on the channel, it's posted, so you can go ahead and check it out. Uh, you know, uh, I mean, if you're watching this, after the fact, you can easily see that first and then come back to watch this. Oh, and definitely follow me on my various channels. Links are in the description. I play lots of video games on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/talkativecarl. Follow me on my Patreon if you want to support the channel, patreon.com/talkativecarl. Or just subscribe to my YouTube channel just to, check out my videos that I upload almost every other day. The movie begins, and I mentioned in my review of the first Venom movie that it's so late 90s type of era when it comes to superhero films. This one is definitely, you can feel the early 2000s superhero films like Ben Affleck's Daredevil and like Thomas Jane's Punisher type of aesthetic, because that's too that's like in there, the ethos it's palatable, you can taste it. Because you see this in a lot of like early 2000s, well, even like movies today, those type of like buddy cop or romantic type of films, whereas like Venom and Brock is like sniping at each other. They help out in their local neighborhood, taking down bad guys and everything like that. And then like Venom's just like nagging Brock, halfway through the movie, or at least the first part of the movie, about like, I need brains, you need to go back, get back with Anne. She's, I like her. You obviously like her. I know you like her. There's like the two primary things. He's nagging Brock, and Brock is like, no, like on my own lane kind of situation. And then he's still like, after the tail end of the first Venom movie, he's been like going back and forth with Cletus Cassidy that he visit, at the Ravencroft, because Ravencroft Institute, the Marvel's equivalent to the Arkham Asylum, like in DC, but just not as popular with like certain villains that's locked up. Aside from maybe like a 3, 4, or 5 of them. It's kind of like that Hannibal Lecter Silence of the Lambs thing. It's like, Cletus, mass murdering serial killer. You get a little, well, at the beginning of the movie, you get a little small 2-minute, almost 2-minute type of backstory of, Cletus Cassidy, younger years, 1996. It's like, this started Woody Harrelson. And I seen Woody Harrelson in a lot of 90s movies, and even in Cheers. The person they have playing him, because it's obviously, it doesn't look like they're using like de-aging type of thing. It's like they cast some early 20s kid to be Cletus Cassidy, and they dubbed over, with Woody Harrelson's voice. And it's like, they didn't take me out, but it's kind of like obvious, at least to me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's just like, God, I couldn't decide whether or not they want to, obviously don't want to blow the budget on just using de-aging technology, but I don't know. Just if you're casting somebody else to be like Cletus Cassidy in his younger years in 1996, just get an entirely different. You already got an entirely different actor. Just use his own voice. Get somebody from like not. I think Cletus Cassidy is kind of like a southern accent. I can't pinpoint. It feels southern accent to me. But get somebody like that to do that part, not just dub over Woody Harris's voice. It just felt like, the voice does not match the person. It doesn't feel like it matched the person. Like how can you tell like somebody's voice doesn't match the person? But you know what I mean. You get the introduction of Shriek at our younger years. Shriek in the comics is, this is probably the first time they actually, in like a Marvel property outside of the X-Men, actually toyed or at least played, because they actually used the word mutation, because Shriek has the power, kind of like Black Canary, to like these sonic screams, and she's a psychopath in her own right, but maybe not. Well, it's hard to say to the extent of Cletus Cassidy. I don't think like even she's not that far into the extent, but she's pretty, bonkers, psychotic herself. But because they do the whole Joker Harley thing with these two, and I'd be curious to see like after this movie that Shriek becomes like in the comics more like prominent. That'd be interesting. And will they do the same like with how DC kind of evolved Harley to being one of the major tentpoles of the DC universe at this point, with getting her out of that bad relationship with the Joker, establish her as her own character, and that kind of thing. Will they do that with Shriek? But then again, unlike Joker, Cassidy does not beat on Shriek. They're like, they play with relationships a lot in this in this film. And the relationship between Cassidy and Shriek is like it's nutso, but they're like this rather than unlike Joker and Harley in like the early years and up until maybe like 10 or so years ago, when they decided to move Harley out of that. It was like an abusive relationship. You don't get an abusive relationship between Shriek and Carnage. So I don't know if they're gonna like need to like pull Shriek out of that relationship to establish her as her own character. But that'll be interesting to see if that is the case, depending on how she's received after this film, and like what they'll do with her in the comics moving forward. Because this is the first time like Shriek become like not center stage, but she is there now. She's in the zeitgeist at this point. Cletus, passed on this little makeshift ring, like some kind of piece of like a do-rag or something like that, some kind of cloth or bandana, something like that. It looked like one of those kind of like bandanas, like like bandits, wrapped around the face, or you put it around your head, kind of thing. They hauling her off to take her to some other facility that handles people with strange abilities like her. She's trying to make her escape one cop who eventually become a thing later in the film, gets a sonic scream to his left ear, and then like take a shot off at Shriek's face, wounding her eye, because you got like a milky kind of thing on her eye, because Shriek got like crazy eyes in the comics. So she eventually is locked up for a long time at this, it was the Ravencroft facility. Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm getting these facilities all mixed up because Ravencroft. I can't remember. It's the one she's permanently locked up in, or the one that she was taken from at a younger age. I cannot recall which one is which. But yeah, it was probably the only person like Carnage or Cletus actually give a crap about, because they're like two peas in a pot. Because it was like shown in like a warped flashback with Cletus in like a form of a drawing that when he was sent there in the first place when he was a kid after he threw threw like a hairdryer in his mother's tub while she was in it and pushed his grandmother down the stairs and killed her. And I do recall many times in the comics how Cletus mentioned that he has pushed his own grandmother down the stairs as a kid. So I'm glad they even worked that into the story. They seriously did their homework with Carnage, which you obviously have to do. You have to do with a lot of these characters to really like show that you did your homework. But the way they woven it in was pretty cool. So fast forward, in present day, Cletus has only been talking with Brock just to get his voice out there. He even mentions how people love their serial killers. Kind of really speak to the notion like current day standards, at least especially in the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, like with like these documentaries about serial killers, like like one being Terror King just last year, which I never got into. I don't give a damn about that. I never did. And I'm surprised it was taken by storm. Like any other day, if it wasn't for the pandemic, any other day, no one would have given a crap about the Tyre King situation, nor the lady who probably killed her former husband. But and then there was crap. Well, there's been other serial killers. I'm thinking of the one in the 70s, or no, the 70s, the 80s. Crap. Charles Manson. There was like a big documentary about him a few years back. So like it kind of really speaks to that line really speaks to current day standards, how like documentaries really like not glorify the serial killers, but just like they do put them on Front Street. Like everybody just goes Google Gaga over, not like in like liking them, but just like the big fixation of them. But Brock, just to get he's kind of working. I won't say working with, but the cop who used to be the security guard guy's ear damaged. He's there on Eddie's ass to like, we need to find these bodies, but he's kind of like a huge tool. Kind of like as Anne puts it later in the film, like he's definitely compensating for something. Like because I guess like usually short people are like like do this whole big man on campus kind of attitude. Despite their diminutive size, probably why he became a cop, a security prior to this. But he's been harping on Eddie. He's like he's the only person. You're the only person he wants to talk to. You only one who can actually probably get some information from him about like where all the bodies is buried, that kind of situation. And Eddie's been working on that. But he also got like Venom in his head. Constantly like backseat driving type of situation. Then he meets up. He's like trying to get Venom to like, if you want to like eat brains, he try to feed them chicken, at least live roosters and chickens, and Venom feels like it doesn't cut it because because you feed them like chocolate and these chickens, but it's like I want brains. Well, chickens have brains. No, that doesn't cut with him. He wants actual normal sized human brains, and Eddie's like having none of that. So that's like that's not just it, but it's, well, normally how relationships are when people like bigger amongst each other. When like just for example, like somebody's arguing, like picking a fight about like the toilet seat being up, and it blows up into this big huge thing. Obviously, it's not about the toilet seat; it's something else, and that's kind of how it feels when it's like, it can't be just about the brains, but it could be just about the brains with Venom. But it's just like, according to Eddie, Venom is just like he doesn't care about like well, he cares about Brock, but he's so like he has self-centered tendencies, which is ironic because Eddie has a few himself. At least in my opinion, that's how I'm reading it. With Venom is like it won't let up with the things that he wants to do, even though it's supposed to be a we thing. When it comes to these two, they're not like they're not working in tandem, and they're not like this all the way. Eddie is trying to like rebuild his life essentially, and he feels like Venom is kind of hampering that a bit. Of course, then Eddie, or at least Venom, because he has a photographic memory, which I did not honestly know about that. I know a good deal about Venom and symbiotes from reading like tons of comics and the '90s Spider-Man film and all this other stuff over the years. The symbiotes having photographic memories. It's not something I remember that being a skill set, but after one visit, he passed by the open cell of Cletus, because he's in a separate cell to talk with people behind these set of bars, which I don't understand why it's not like just like the way they have like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, is big just kind of glass cage type of or glass plastic, hard plastic, whatever type of case that you can't break out of, given like the level of a serial killer he is. You wouldn't just regular bars wouldn't cut it with him. You don't want him to run the risk of just like yanking somebody and doing what he will eventually do, like you see in the trailers, taking a bite out of Eddie's hand. But Eddie passed by the open cell of Cletus, where he's like doing all these markings and stuff, and Venom later on like using, which is a cool moment, like very cool thing where like Venom takes over Eddie's hands and just like does all these crazy drawings, like, do you see here, like, no, like like, and he does another drawing, and it's like he uses ink to like cover this plastic thing, and he puts it over on his on the computer at this location that Venom looked up, and given like the clues, the subtle hints that Cletus was given, and then what Venom saw in the cell, he put two and two together himself, and then clue Eddie in, which he eventually figures out where the body's buried without the need to, because initially Eddie made a deal with Cletus that he would print things that he say, like one he did one and it was printed on the first page, but according to Cletus it wasn't the full thing. You only did half the job, but he eventually figured, Venom figured it out, and Eddie clued in the police force of where all the bodies was buried anyway, without the need for doing these tit for tat with Cletus, which obviously angers him. So that put that, because I guess having that in his back pocket kind of stayed his execution for a little while longer. Now that it's been like solved, they don't need to keep him around alive anymore. He's like immediately on death row. Uh, 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 he sent like Cletus sent like a postcard, or not postcard, but like a letter to Eddie, which is weird because it's always weird, when it comes to like these like movies, and I don't know about real life, but serial killers are somehow finding out where you live to send letters to. It's so odd, but he gives this letter, saying like, I just want to see you one last time before I die. So he's having his one last meal. He somehow figures out about, because if you know any, if you read any comics or even like watched the '90s Spider-Man TV show, you know about like how Eddie has like dealt with like bad relationships, and then it's like abusive father. And when he was born, he his mother died giving birth to him, and Cletus brought all that back up, and not so subtle hints, and it's like man, like Andy Serkis did his freaking homework, like when it like becomes like coming in, like bringing up like Eddie Brock's slight, like at least a sliver of his origin story, and like you obviously see like the infuriated face on Eddie, but it was Venom who like acted and like tried to like attack Cletus, but as soon as he did that, Cletus took a bite out of him, and then like because they're so bonded, Eddie's blood still had like some kind of piece of the symbiote attached to it, and is in is grew into Cletus's body, which eventually will become Carnage when he just. We'll get to that in a second. If you know in the comics, how Carnage becomes Carnage, he's technically the child of Venom. Venom eventually spawned another, because Clintars, which is the alien race Venom is, they can like reproduce asexually without need to actually have sex. They spawn another piece of their own kind, which when well, it's actually if I'm remembering correctly, Eddie actually went to prison where Cletus was his cellmate, and somehow, well, I don't know if it was like cellmates, but just cells right next to each other. And as Venom was reattached eventually to Eddie, he was technically pregnant, and somehow spawned another piece of himself without Eddie's notice, and then it kind of attaches itself to Cletus next door, which eventually lead to Carnage's creation. They did a little something slightly different here. I could be misremembering that, but it's like something like that. There's a cool scene, and it's like, as there's moments, because this is PG-13. According to Tom Hardy, he wanted Venom to be rated R. But of course, like during the post-production, there's certain moments where you can see like this clearly was meant to be an R-rated scene, but doing post-production, like the studio has probably like make sure like, okay, pull it back, these violent scenes to very PG-13 it up, which one of my biggest cons, not even this, but in Venom the first Venom movie, have you learned nothing from the Deadpool films? Is that when it comes to R-rated type of characters, when it's the Punisher, Deadpool, Venom, Carnage, Wolverine, characters like these are geared towards violence. Okay, they're like the handful of people that it cannot work neutered. You can try, and maybe it works in some cases. Like by and large, Venom and Venom 2, they still managed to, even with like Wolverine, well, until like Logan came about. But even then, like Logan and Deadpool and 1 and 2, it taught us that, not everything needs to be rated R, but when it comes to certain characters that's rooted them into like Spawn and stuff like that, and is rooted to be violent, it's something that you should honor. And I guess I get it. You wanted to make sure it reached out to a wider audience, would bring children there to make bigger bucks, so you can bring more eyes, and or at least have parents buy more tickets to bring their little ones to this thing. But it's just like even with the Joker movie, it's like it can still gross over $1 billion, and it didn't have to be PG-13 to get more eyes on it or whatever like that. It just it kind of like hampers how more bigger it could have been. I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to be big. It's going to be big. But I'm saying like Venom 1 and 2 should be reaching the numbers of Logan and Deadpool. That's what I'm saying. It should be reaching those level of numbers because it was faithful to the source material. I mean, not that it's not, but it's just that you're missing like the edge that's in it. The 90s edge, is what made this character so good. Is a lethal protector, which they, bring up the name towards the end. But when Carnage, is born, because he said Carnage like at least 100 times in this, let there be Carnage, like half that. Carnage busts out, and it's like, because it's a funny little line, because earlier, when he's on like, about to get the needle and everything like that, the I believe it's the warden, because I was about to say that the priest. I'm pretty sure it was the warden, because he wasn't dressing up like a priest. Because usually it's a priest in these kind of things. The warden, asks like, because Cletus says some kind of like little, thing, this little mini speech, and the warden is like, is that your last words? And then like he quickly brings that back after like Karn is going on this tear, and it's like you can see the moments when you obviously want to, you can tell that they're violent moments, but it's pulled back. There's one moment where like these security guards is like shooting at Carnage, and he's just walking and getting closer, and he's like dissolving Cletus's body to almost like a skeleton, and so the bullets can pass him, even though he can just like block the bullets with the symbiote. He just like, I don't know, he just did not care, because they're not like a partnership. This is like a just straight up dominance, or at least just so close to the point that they refer to themselves as I, not we. And obviously, because Carnage can just regenerate Cletus, he doesn't care what happens, to him. He can just like, okay, let me dissolve his body so his bullets can go past me, and then I'll just re-heal him in a minute. Just doesn't give a care about, give it zero fucks about the host. And then just, force feeding, like one guard is like, please have a family. And then it's like, like that means like your pleas. It's like, you should know, it shouldn't even be like you're gonna die. You pleading to something like this. it's gonna cut it. You don't even know this thing even speaks English. Uh, uh, but he takes one tendril and like shoves it down the throat, doing God knows what, obviously just tearing from the inside on out, and just like throwing people all over the place and made this big whirlwind just spinning around really, really, really fast. And then he grabs the warden and like Cletus pops out for a split second, like, any last words? And then just bites off the warden's head, PG-13 his head off. And just like escapes immediately. But that was a badass Carnage moment. And then like eventually, after finding out that Dan and Ann are going to get married, because Ann like meet up with Eddie to tell him like the news, so that way he'll get it from her before he hears it from anybody else. Venom is distraught. He obviously knows Eddie's distraught, but Eddie's trying to like put up a brave face and stuff. And Venom trying to make him cry, like, cry, Eddie, cry, go ahead, it's okay. And then like he's obviously like this leads from both of them like having like this big fight later on in the apartment, whereas like Venom's breaking headbutting Eddie in the face, breaking his nose, and Eddie's like taking his motorcycle helmet and smashing against Venom's face, breaking his teeth, and then his teeth was just re-go like, how dare you. And it's just like, and then just petty squabbling. This is like and even like Eddie's just saying like, this is abuse, and it's like there's this big blow off fight they having. Is typical in like certain, like especially in like the early 2000s. It's a typical fight and breakup moment. Venom tosses Eddie's like TV out the window, and then Venom eventually just takes off and possesses one person to smash Eddie's motorcycle just out of the sheer pettiness, and then hijacks another body as somebody on a bike is riding off, and Venom just like out of the full view of the public, just flipping like just flipping off Eddie along the way, which eventually leads Venom just hopping from person to person because none of them are a good match for him, and he eventually goes to this like rave type of thing, and everybody thought it was like a guy in a costume, and it leads to like a moment where it's like it's cool, but I personally did not, because I seen it in like little sliver of like mini little trailers or ads of this movie where you see like him doing these glow stick rings around his neck, and he's got a mic or something like that, and he's doing like a mic drop on stage. I'm thinking like he's like maybe not rapping or anything like that. I was thinking God wasn't some kind of stupid rap, but I was thinking that it was him doing like an MC type of thing, and there's like music's playing, maybe playing like Eminem's Venom song, because there's a new song for this movie, not as good unfortunately as the Venom song in the original movie. But I was assuming that it was going to lead to something like that, whereas like one of songs from the album, like at least Venom by Eminem, would have been like playing. It's like and Venom's hyping up the crowd as like the music is playing. That would have been a better moment than this quote unquote coming out type of deal that Venom was giving out, this speech that kind of like is off-putting. It was like weirdly off-putting. It's like some people might care for that. That's good on you. It's not saying it's like a terrible scene, but it's just it kind of fell flat. But then Eddie quickly figures out how it was on the news about how like Cletus escaped. Now he's worried because he's worried that he's gonna come after him. Uh, but he eventually figures out uh, and tells the cop about like the this woman that he's probably infatuated back in the day. He might be looking for her, and you see this like it's another cool scene where it's like Cletus sneaks in to this facility where Shriek's being held, and this woman, it was definitely Ravencroft Institute, and this old lady, because it's very reminiscent to Amazing Spider-Man 2, where Jamie Foxx Electro, because there's this because the man who's kind of experimenting on Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is named Dr. Kafka, and he's kind of very German stereotypical mad scientist kind of thing, but in the actual comics and certain TV shows, this is a woman and not German. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Kafka and the comics had like a thing with either John Jameson or Kraven the Hunter. And I'm pretty sure it was the 90s Spider-Man TV show that she had like a romantic involvement with Kraven the Hunter. I could be wrong. I haven't seen that show in a while. I will be doing a TV show review on that some point in the future. But I'm not sure if this version's Dr. Kafka. Her name was never mentioned. No, I'm pretty sure it was mentioned, but I just wasn't paying attention. I don't think it was Kafka, though. But, she's like, one of the doctors in the comics of Ravencroft Institute that actually wants to help rehabilitate people. But this old lady is talking through like a Streak's voice. They got her in this little glass cage and had to, guards had to use earplugs and headsets to block out noise canceling headphones, just to block out any chance for any damage to negate her powers. So, she's using, because Streak has to use a computer inside her cell just to communicate on the people on the outside, so that way, her powers won't reach. And like they're chatting, and then and another thing type well, she's the doctor says something like something to effect like, so where's your boyfriend now? And you see someone type on the screen like, he's right here. And she looks up and you see Clea's like waving at her on the other side of the door, as a Carnage tendril starts wrapping around her neck, and you don't even hear her screaming, and you see this like obviously being like choked to death. And it's like, it's a cool scene because it's like you see just Carnage or Cletus and Shriek having this little longing, soulful, loving look toward each other, as like in the background you see like this lady's legs dangling and she's being strangled to death, and it's like shit, it's a cool moment. It was like, this is actually like, this is like something like you would definitely like, in a movie like this I could definitely see that happening. It's like just like off-screen kill as these two lovebirds are reconnecting, and it's like, it's kind of like it's kind of like in Deadpool where I'm pretty sure in the end of Deadpool 1 where Deadpool already got like stabs in the head, and he's looking at uh uh his girl as she's like, you know, getting her bearings, and it's like music playing, and he's like just, you know, all this stuff going around his head, and he's just like love, and he's putting this little heart shaped thing, and he's still fighting Francis in the whole time. It was just, it's kind of like something like that, where it's like, it's all this devastation, and all they see is just each other. It was kind of cool. uh they break out, and then all these like police officers and like, all these officers start storming the grounds, uh and you know uh you see like Carnage just ripping through uh the cars. Speaking of which, early in the film there was another cool moment. This, despite the lack of rated R in this movie, it's very PG-13 kind of gory kills. On the road towards the facility just to find where Shriek is being held up, just to you know just zero fucks about it, because that's what you expect from Carnage. Like, he just for the shits and giggles, just tear killed the passengers or passenger inside this pickup truck in front of him, and just toss it off the side of the San Francisco bridge. And just, he wasn't even in his way. He didn't care. He just did it and just tossed it. Yeah, that's what you expect from Carnage. That's what you want to see. The Carnage that we expecting, because obviously the most famous Carnage storyline in all of Marvel is probably one of the famous, because it's a video game back in the 90s, but it was based off the comic. There was this big event called Maximum Carnage, and that's what most people probably would have been expecting. But obviously it was like that probably would have required it being like a 2-hour long film and a more bigger budget, and that might probably, if they did all that, it probably would have done some hindrance to the film, in my opinion, rather than like a benefit. It might be pushing things a little bit for this film. But there is also like a short event called Minimum Carnage, and that's what I got here and there. Was like, it's not maximum carnage. There's moments where there's very minimum carnage, but I would say overall throughout the whole film, I'd say there's medium carnage. There was very medium carnage vibes when it comes to these kills that we're seeing from the most famous killer in comics. He's tearing open all these police cars and this big, almost web-like, just spreading out and everything like that, and all these knives and knife-like things and tendrils and everything like that just ripping through. And then this helicopter comes and Shriek using her powers, and then it's like, Cletus, tells like he doesn't like sound. And it's like, and Carnage is like, if she does that again, I'll eat her face. And it's like, I'm thinking to myself, while you guys were escaping, why? I mean, you knew ahead of time, what Shriek's powers are. Why didn't you warn Carnage, like, hey, by the way, she has, sonic powers, so you might want to, brace yourself for that, or at least, when she's firing, make sure you're not near that, so you won't be affected, kind of thing. And it's like that kind of thing slipped your mind. Why would you bring that up to him? Anyway, they escape, leaving, for lack of the better word, Carnage in their wake, but very medium Carnage in their wake. Now they're like going out, they're trying to look for the cop that Shriek had a grudge with, which is, now I don't think about it, why is she singling out this one single cop when it's like, well, they're going after the doctor in the facility, which they did, and then they go after the cop. I'm thinking to myself, okay, there was other people that was dragging her away. Why is she singling out that cop? Was it because like he was the only one that's watching her in the back of the paddy wagon, which is weird. And you got like a very dangerous young lady with superpowers. Why don't you have like more people, guarding her, or at least put something over her mouth? Uh, because kind of like at the end of the first Avengers movie, they put this thing over Loki's face. You could have had something like that when you're dealing with someone with sonic screams. Is a very like poor way of handling somebody with like that particular ability. But yeah, she's only singing out this one cop. Is figured to be like more people involved, given the fact that it wasn't just him hauling her away. Unless, well, obviously he's the one that shot her in the face and wounded her eye. But overall, there was more people dragging her away. It wasn't just him, just because he did a particular thing. But anyway, they eventually, yes, she Venom again with Anne after. Oh, this is a cool moment where after the whole rave thing, Venom calls another host, towards Mrs. Chan's place. I love Mrs. Chan, and like, he's possessing Mrs. Chan because he's the only one that he besides Anne, Dan, and Eddie that he personally knows. He need to find like some kind of safe haven. And after like Eddie's being brought in for a question by this cop guy who puts together like after all these disasters with like Carlton Drake and the Rocket and now with the Cletus and stuff like that, he's interrogating him, but he calls Anne because she's the only lawyer that he knows, and she go out to look for Venom because you got to deal with Cletus because he's turned to something that they have no clue what's going on, but he gets an inkling that he has after he puts together that his blood that was connected to Venom somehow is like turning him into a monster. Anne finds Venom with Mrs. Chan, and it's like Mrs. Chan is amazing. The actress who plays Mrs. Chan is like, because they all having a ball with this. At least a lot of them are, especially Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris, who are playing Cletus and Streak, and you see Mrs. Chan just like with Venom's voice is doing this like move and very satisfied kind of attitude with herself, and it's like, and you see like Venom eyes possessing her. It was just and like and she's trying to coax his ego just to have Venom repossess her so she can bring him to Eddie, and then Dan's just like, yo, I'm right here, and Venom like, nobody let you down. It was just giving Dan just shit just for no reason, and Dan's cool, and it's like leave Dan alone. It was just so funny. I was like, the Venom's reaction to Dan is just like, it's everything. Those moments are just very good. Like when these funny little bits hit, they hit pretty doggone good. Yes, she Venom again. And it's like she has to play, when like certain couples are arguing, they put a friend in the middle of their little argument. It's like, I'm not talking to him, so you got to speak through them by proxy. It's like Venom wants an apology, I'm like, right now. It's like, and then it's like he Eddie like apologizes, and like Venom's like, I want him to beg, and it's like he begs and apologizes to Venom for what he said and everything like that, and I'm being appreciative and everything like that. And then they rebonded, but they Dan and uh well Dan gets knocked out, but uh Anne gets kidnapped by Shriek, because they eventually get a hold of the cop. Uh, 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 they went to this church where they was trying to get married and everything like that, and they want like they call it like Carnage call it like a red wedding, which is like a funny little thing. We all know about the famous red wedding in Game of Thrones, and that's why I immediately go my brain. People put in like red wedding long before Game of Thrones, but it's like a typical term when villains go to like a big church and like they expected to commit mass murder, while two villains are probably getting married, or at least one trying to marry the person that they probably don't like, or at least marry a person they like, but that said person does not like them back, but are forced to be there kind of scenario. But in this case, they both like each other. She's in all like very black dress, very Black Dahlia, Tim Burton type of wedding dress, and Venom and Eddie show up, and a battle ensues. And it was a moment where, like, when Shriek's trying to use her powers, not only affecting Venom, but affecting Carnage too, and Carnage smacks her, on the side of the face, and it's like, don't do that again. And like, you see, like, Cletus, try to jump, out and, yelling, like, pretty sure her real name is Fiona. I don't know, I can't remember. It starts with an F, but I'm just calling her Shriek. That's her villain name, and that's what I easily remember. Shriek goes after the cop trying to kill her, which eventually technically she still does. But that moment when I told you about that teenager blurring out that stupid word, it was around that time where you see like which kind of leads me to believe, like, okay, is this guy a mutant too? Because like his eyes glow like at least his pupils, or the like little irises, glow some type of blue. And that never was brought up again. But that was like a thing that I know. It's like, this dude like a mutant too? It's like, because it's the first time they actually said mutant outside of the X-Men stuff. So in this film, it will be this film, it would really brought up the term mutant. Then the fight between like Venom and Carnage escalates. Carnage typically is a little stronger. Typically is a little stronger than Venom, but it all depends on the writer. But Venom's having a tough time dealing with Carnage, because Carnage got all these like hit him with all these spikes and trying to rip him open and everything like that. And it's like, come on, man! And like, you kind of can do the same thing. I don't know why you're having like an issue dealing with this guy, but Carnage at the end is trying to like, he's biting off the priest's head. It's like, power up, and then it's like, that was that moment when things are really like, at that moment I feel like, okay, it's escalating now, because this dude is about to go on like a fucking tear. So he, Carnage is like, just pretty much just getting like, doesn't even give a crap at this point about like what Shriek, despite the pleas of Cletus. Eddie eventually saves Anne, but they're on top of this bell tower, which is like kind of homaging a bit to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, with the bell tower kind of like, ringing and causing like, disruption of the symbiote connection. And so you get these little fights between uh uh Eddie and Cletus, and Cletus is like just whooping Eddie's ass, even though, like, dude, you lift weights, you clearly lift weights because there's weights in your house, you got all this, just pumping up, and you can't, take on a scrawny guy like Cletus. Is like, why you're having so much freaking trouble. And then at one moment, Cletus, got his little mini hammer, and starts like wailing on like, Eddie's legs, and it's like at least one of his legs, and I'm thinking to myself like, come on, dude. It's like, and it's like does this like misery thing. It's like he misering, Eddie's legs right now, and like, Venom, once Venom's trying to come back, and he's like trying to lift all these debris off of him. It's like, I'm thinking about like Michael Caine and Batman Begins, like, what's the bloody point of all those push-ups so you can't lift a bloody log? And it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, what's all those muscles for? You can't even lift up all these rocks. Come on. They're not even rocks. It's like just pieces of concrete that you should be able to burst out of. But eventually does, because of Shriek, as she's like falling to her death as the top of the church is collapsing, and she gets crushed by the bell, but the sonic scream disrupts, Eddie and Cletus. Cletus falls out of the Carnage symbiote and falls to his death, or not death, that his legs are completely broken. And it was a cool moment when Dan, as Dan and hanging on to something, as like he's holding on to Anne, and she's, catching Eddie, and the symbiote falls to Dan, like, kind of surfs through his body into Anne's body and right into Eddie. And I thought, okay, that was a pretty damn cool move right there. And I was like, and then like he, Venom reattaches to Eddie just in the nick of time before he lands. And then you get this moment between Eddie and Cletus. And Cletus, tells Eddie's like, like, always, I just wanted like a friend. Kind of, it was like actually like a very cool, serious moment, kind of very soulful moment between two adversaries. And then it's not undercutting. Usually this would be considered an undercut of the like a tender moment, but it was actually a pretty cool moment. Like, you get one F-bomb in these kind of things, and they use it very appropriately here. Whereas like, Cletus tells him like, what he wants to, get off his chest to Eddie. And then Venom resuits up, and it's like, fuck this guy. And then it's like bites off Cletus' head. And that's the end of Cletus. Which is like a shame, because it was like Woody Harrelson was always good in, everything he's in. And if they want to bring Carnage back, they want to probably recast somebody a little bit younger, because Woody Harrelson is like late 50s, getting into his 60s at this point. Still pretty spry, but he really luckily in this movie doesn't require that much energy from him, because the symbiote does all the work. But if you want like, somebody as nearly as young as Tom Hardy to, do something like, if he's being himself, do some more, active roles, you need somebody about as young with some energy. He, before the cops swarm the place, Eddie and Venom's, says their goodbyes to Dan and Anne, and tells like Venom to like or at least tell both of them look out to each other, and they go off to this island, which is kind of like a cool callback to a moment in the comics where Eddie Brock and Venom form around the whole Lethal Protector kind of storyline, where after they defeat Carnage, or at least at this point, like Venom still has some animosity towards Spider-Man, but they had this kind of truce where Spider-Man and Peter would leave Venom and Eddie alone. If Eddie and Venom just go off on their own, get out of New York and just go somewhere else, so that way they eventually go to like San Francisco and become Lethal Protector in a different city and do their own thing, so that way these two don't have to like, because this is like a truth, like you stay in your own lane, I'll stay in like my lane kind of thing. But they also at a certain point, after they thought they killed, I think it was before that whole truce, but at a certain point Venom thought they killed Spider-Man finally, so they was on this island where they become like just living in peace there. And that's where you see like here was not like a island, but it's kind of like a just they kind of just ran to this I don't know, it's a kind of tropical place. Let's just say it's Hawaii. I said they ran off to like this resort area, but they rented this not shabby, but very like not that nice of a place in this room, because it's like we're in the whole mid credit scene. There's only a mid credit scene. There's no end credits. It is mid credit scene. They're in this hotel room, very kind of shabby motel, I should say, and like they're watching telenovela, and Venom's bringing up. Oh, I almost forgot. I didn't want to forget this. It was like a cool moment because this is all tying into the MCU at this point. Venom brings up, at least Eddie brings up at some point when they was doing this big old drawing that they bring up like you gotta be responsible, and like Venom was like, responsibility is for the mediocre. And it's like there's little subtle little jabs with like Spider-Man references there. But right here at this point, Venom was going on about how like we can't keep secrets from each other kind of situation, and like Venom was like saying like I'm an alien, I got a like vast knowledge of like the universe behind me and stuff for my my life outside of Earth, and like I can download that to you pretty much, but that will probably pop your brain because humans can't handle that kind of stuff. But I can give you a little tiny fraction of it, that I think you can handle. And just before like he was about to do that, you see like the room rumbling and like glowing lights outside of the room, and things is whirling, and now the room changed to like a shabby motel to a more fancy hotel room, and the telenovela is changed to the end of Far From Home's J. Jonah Jameson's announcer of Peter Parker's Spider-Man thing, and it was a cool moment. And it's like you see like Venom come up, and it's like that guy, and he licks the screen where you see Tom Holland's face. And it's like, that gave me so much of a high. And it's like, because that little glowy light thing is similar. There's like at least 3 things. That glowing light is similar to what we saw in the Spider-Man 3 trailer, No Way Home trailer, where like, Doctor Strange is doing his powers, and like this glowy little whirling lights is happening around him and Peter. And like the room kind of glitches, similar to how in WandaVision when she's changing reality to fit like whatever decade, and it's kind of like that's going on, and it's like we already know what Sylvie's doing in like in the Loki series when after she kills Kang, and it's causing like the multiverse of madness at this point. And a lot of people, when they bring it up, like, oh, this is solely Doctor Strange. This is not solely Doctor Strange. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's not solely Doctor Strange. I believe that what Wanda doing at the end with Agatha's book at the end of WandaVision, and with what Sylvie did in the end of the Loki series, and what Doctor Strange might be doing with Spider-Man, all that is going, like, it's probably happening at the exact same time. Like, by themselves, it probably would have already, caused some kind of mess. But all together, it's probably with what we end up with, like, with some X-Men and, Fantastic Four, and then with the whole, Spider-Verse thing that's happening in No Way Home, with, where we're getting Venom here, because now, like, Venom is, like, in the MCU universe. Wonder how that's going to turn out for him in his perspective. Like, what is this world? What is the snap? What's going on with it? Like, people talking about, like, people was dusted 5 years ago. Like, what's all that about? And then you got, like, a lot of people speculate that, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, it could be, like, it could work in that, even though he's supposed to have died in Spider-Man 2, it could mean, like, right before he could have drowned, that little whirling glowy like light show with Doctor Strange kind of sucked him out in that exact moment before he actually would have died, and he's in like on the surface in a different universe. And then same thing with like Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe, right before maybe he died, or well, then again it's a little touchy with him because it all depends on where he's been grabbed or something. Because I'm not sure if they keeping like Willem Dafoe as the Norman Osborn in like the MCU, or if they gonna put everybody back in their proper places before this all happened. Not sure. I doubt it. I mean, maybe I doubt some of them because like Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe probably won't be able to be sticking around here and there for like Sony Marvel property or MCU property for maybe no longer than maybe 5 years, probably like 1 or 2 Spider-Man films at the most, because they are not old, but definitely older. And it's also, we don't know, but it's just that when you saw his dead corpse, and he was in in the first Spider-Man movie, and they buried it, so it's hard to say when the universe will grab him while he's still alive and bring him over. It has to be, because if they grab him right before like the glider impaled him, along with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, then if somehow he's put back, or at least they're put back in their respective universe, are they put back in that exact moment when they were pulled from, right when the glider was about to hit him to finish him off, to complete the loop, essentially? I'm not sure. He has to be grabbed at some moment, when he's alive, because he's officially dead in the first Spider-Man film. And, and it's never stated if Electro is technically dead in Amazing Spider-Man 2. You can actually work well with that and with the Lizard. Don't know if they're gonna bring back Sandman, which would be cool if they did. But this has got me so hyped. It's like, and I hope they bring in like Michael Keaton's Vulture, because it's obviously established he's in like the Sony property, and like they doing this whole Sinister Six thing, because he's meeting with Morbius. So it's really putting things together, and it's like I doubt they're gonna have Morbius show up in this. But they definitely gonna have Morbius fighting Tom Holland Spider-Man and feature another Spider-Man film, maybe Spider-Man 4. They meet each other because Morbius comes out next year. So the next Spider-Man film after that, you have those two fight each other. Uh, but I'm feeling this movie is really good, despite I like at least three things that I probably did not really care for. I did not care for the lack of rated R stuff. They could have thrown in something, even though it's they worked, they made the PG-13 work, probably in post production. And Tom Holly stated that he wants to rated R. They probably shot it like R at first, but then post production they kind of pulled it back for theater purposes. I kind of wish they, I hope they had some kind of like cut of this movie where they kept kind of like the reverse of what they did with Deadpool 2, where they have the R rating for the theater release, but they did a PG-13 version for as one of the DVDs. So I kind of hope they kind of do a reverse of that, where like we got like the PG-13, but there's a cut of it on a DVD format where it's the R version, and I kind of want to see that. But I didn't care for the whole rave scene with Venom. It kind of fell flat for me. And that was a third thing. I can't recall what I said. What did I say? I'm blanking, but those two really stuck out, to be honest. But this was definitely a fun film. Some say it will be kind of like a movie that turn your brain off kind of stuff. I understand that feeling, but it's not something that I'll turn my brain off. This is something I'll be definitely engaged. Just like I was still engaged with Venom. There's stuff that I was just glued to because it was just a fun. It's definitely a fun movie, but not a turn your brain off type of film. This is something that you will be like, at least personally, I feel focused on. Is really good, despite the few cons I had about it. But I'm so excited. Like, oh my god, this really got me hyped for Spider-Man No Way Home now. I was like, I cannot wait. We just gotta get past Eternals, because I'm going to see Eternals in November, no doubt. And I'll do my spoiler review when I get back from my Vegas trip. I'm just gotta figure out. My sister's gotta figure out like the plane tickets, that we can afford for the round trip and everything like that. Gotta check with her to see how that is coming about. But right when I come back, I will have gone to see the film, and then because I know it's gonna be a lot of people spoiling it and everything like that. That weekend when I'm gone, because I don't know I'll have the time to go see it on my trip. Don't know 100% because this is a 2-hour long movie, so I don't know 100%. I could try. Maybe when I meet up with some friends in Vegas, I'll see if we can, like, I don't know, grab a movie together or something like that, and I can go see the Eternals. So when I come back, I can just, so that way I don't have to be spoiled or worry about like social media and everything like that. I can just like, I gotta see how that turns out. If I can't squeeze in the time to do so while I'm in Vegas, I'll try to catch it as soon as I get back, so I can do a spoiler review. So that way I don't have to worry about spoilers, or especially when, that's what I've been doing with this movie. I've been avoiding social media because it came out on Thursday for certain early releases, and people are already posting videos about it. I'm trying to avoid like certain comment section because it got burned on that once with the Force Awakens, with Solo's spoiler alert, with Solo's death. And it's like, I don't want that happening to me again. I don't want to get burned like that again. So, and I wasn't even watching something specifically tailored to Star Wars at that time. I was watching a completely different podcast talking about something completely different, not even like superhero or Star Wars related. And then I was scrolling through the comments, and somebody put, Han Solo dies, in the third act kind of situation, and it kind of it still upsets me. And like some people just do it. I don't know. It's like, does that make you happy? Does that get you off somehow to just ruin it for people, and like an unrelated like it'd be one thing, it'd be on my own fault if I'm watching like a podcast talking about Star Wars related content, maybe not the movie specifically, but just any Star Wars related thing at that time, and then just scrolling through the comments, and I see something like that. That's probably 50% on me for going through the comments, and I should be more privy to the thought that, somebody might pull it up or at least put it there. But if I'm watching something like talking about, if I'm talking about like Overwatch, or somebody a podcast about Overwatch or something, and I'm scrolling through the comments and somebody put Han Solo dies at the end of Force Awakens, I'm gonna be mad because that's not something I would expect to see there. If somebody did that intentionally on purpose, just to F whoever's watching that, nobody does that. Nobody, please, people out there, don't ever do that to people. Okay, that's wrong. Is it a complete dick move? You're a tool for that. I reserve my belief that if a movie comes out, especially a very hyped up movie, it's my personal responsibility to avoid spoiling that for people. That's when I started making these kind of videos, I put like spoiler in big bold letters so you can clearly read it. I'm not going to be effing around here that like I'm going to be spoiling this movie. I even say it here, like usually at the beginning, that I'm spoiling this film. So that way you do not have to click on this film until you have seen it, or at the very least you don't care about spoilers despite whether or not you're going to see it. I want to make sure that I'm covering my butt here, and that way I have the courtesy to let you guys, warn you guys. But prior to this, I usually like avoid telling people that have not seen this, at least afford them a week along. At least if I go movies released, like Venom was released yesterday, I won't bring it up to people that have not seen it for at least a week or two, just to give them enough time to get their stuff together so they can eventually go out and see it, so they won't get spoiled. At the most, I will tell them like, yeah, it's good, or like, you better go see it, just to say it's like I have fun personally, but I say it's worth to go see kind of situation. And I'm gonna leave it like, very, very vague. I don't even do non-spoilers half the time because like that still might be a little bit too much. So I figure like, yeah, I enjoyed it, or it's amazing, it's gonna blow your mind kind of thing. I was like, or I'm gonna be like, like I still say it's worth seeing kind of thing. Even if I did not care for it or it didn't blow my mind, I will tell people because I will be like interesting to see it. Like Quantum of Solace, James Bond film, because I'm going to see next week. I'm going to review No Time to Die. Well, I went to the theaters to see Quantum of Solace back in the day, and when people asked me about the movie, I didn't even say it was bad or good. I was like, I don't know, it's worth the watch. And it's like, you will want to at least have seen it once, despite how bad it is. You at least want to see it once, so that way you can have that, that you've seen, like, all the James Bond films, or at least all the Daniel Craig ones, at least once. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to sit there and just blurt it out to people that haven't seen it. Or, if somebody tells me like, oh, he hasn't seen it, don't say nothing. I'm like, oh, okay, no, never mind. But anyway, thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and follow me on my Patreon. Links are in the description. Let me know what your thoughts on Venom 2, if you've seen it already, of what did you like, what you did not like. Do you have favorite scenes or not favorite at all that fell flat for you? I'd be interested in hear from you guys. Until next week, when I do a few more movie reviews, I will see you guys. Well, I'll see you guys with video game walkthroughs too, but definitely movie reviews too. So, take care. Have a good night.